So today we're going to go over fire alarms. There are several buildings that are in our valley that have some kind of a fire alarm system. This video is going to go over the alarm systems that within our schools. It's also going to go over the different types of alarms you may encounter, what to look for when you're responding to these types of calls, what to do for either your general fire signals, water flow signals, how to locate the fire alarm panel, how to shut off the riser, and also just be a general playbook for any types of alarms calls on any structure that has an alarm system in our valley. So let's go ahead and dive into fire alarms. When responding to an alarms call, your crew should be ready to go in case there are fire conditions present on your arrival. This means being in the appropriate PPE prior to arriving on scene. Your company officer should be setting the expectations of what PPE should be worn on every call, but the Moapa Valley Fire District expects that at a minimum, every person should be wearing their turnouts, helmet, gloves, and an air pack. So if you're an ESF, you should be wearing at least your turnouts, helmets, and gloves, and if you're the driver operator, you should be at least wearing gloves and protective footwear. Every person in your company should have the mindset there are fire conditions at the dispatch location until proven otherwise. It's much easier to put on the brakes than try to step on the gas in these types of situations. If your crew comes in with the expectation to find something, you will be ready to operate at a high level instead of coming in expecting nothing and finding fire conditions. I can personally tell you it's not a good feeling responding to these calls, thinking it's nothing, then scrambling to put on my PPE as there's smoke blowing out of the openings of the building. Don't get caught with your pants down, turnout pants in this situation, literally on these calls. So if you're a company officer or senior member acting as an officer, be prepared to add more resources depending on the fire conditions you observe while responding. Where there is smoke, there is fire. This is especially true with these types of calls. Do not hesitate for 1 second to add more units if you see a column of smoke from the building, or if you're reading the notes and you feel as if you'll need the help. We can always cancel resources if we don't need them. Once you arrive on scene, the first thing we should do is look for obvious fire conditions. Look for smoke or fire from the building and for smoke stained windows, as these are some of the conditions that there's an active fire that has either vented or is still inside the building and hasn't been vented yet. Either sign would be a good indication that more resources should be added. If possible, perform a 360 of the structure. With some of the commercial buildings we have, this may be possible, but you will not be able to perform a 360 on any of our schools. The campuses are too large and they're all fenced in. Do your best to get as large a picture as possible. Driving around the building is the fastest way to get 360, but again, that's only if you have the access to do so. If the building is equipped with sprinklers, look for water flow from doorways or from a drain on the side of the building. This is an indicator that there's a sprinkler activation or at least there's water flow from the system somewhere. You'll also want to bring all the tools you'll need just in case there are fire conditions or you're expecting fire conditions during your investigation. This would include a water can, hand tools such as axes, haligans, trash hooks, pike poles, a thermal imaging camera, or what's called a TIC for short, and any power tools you may think you need for access such as K12s or chainsaws. You also should be looking for anything suspicious. This includes doors that are open when the business or school is closed, broken doors or windows, and packages or backpacks left out in the open. If you see any of these things, your crew safety is first. Call for law enforcement and listen to your instincts. If there's an active fire and you see any of those signs, there could be secondary devices or subjects on scene who are trying to draw you in. Take caution and delay entry until you have LE to go with you inside the building. Remember, our first priority is life safety on every call, and our safety comes first. Once the determination has been made of whether there's an emergent or non-emergent need, you will need to gain access to the structure. If the need is emergent, pick the fastest way to gain access and get inside to take care of the problem, whether that means it's destructive or not. The fastest way, though, may be to either force the door by hand or power tools or to use a key. Each squad in our district has a lockbox with keys inside of it. These lockboxes should be mounted in the air pack compartment on the driver's side near the top, as shown in the next picture on the next slide. The boxes have what's called Knox box keys. These keys are for the fire department to gain access to a Knox box located outside of the building. The Knox box has a master key or set of keys that allows us to gain access to the building without having to force entry when the building is locked. Though it's always fun to break doors down, the Knox key will most likely be the fastest way to gain access to these buildings. So over the next few slides, we will look at each one of our schools and where the Knox box locations are for each one. But again, before we do that, we'll look at where the locks box is in the squads. Here are the pictures of the lockbox inside of the squad. So you can see in this front compartment in the front left-hand corner is this little black box that has this door on it. As you can see in this second picture, there's this box right here. And you pull that box down, and then there's this keypad that's on the box. All the officers in the district should have this keypad code. Officers, if you do not remember what the keypad code is, please reach out to me and I will get you the code. Once you open the keypad, you can see in this very far right-hand picture, there are 2 keys that are in here. This is for gaining access to the Knox box that is outside of the school. So now we'll go over all the locations of each Knox box at each school and where to access them and how to access them. This is the Knox box at Perkins Elementary School located in Moapa. The sign below the Knox box doesn't have anything to do with the box itself, as it was there before the box was installed. Each box looks identical, so you won't have to worry what to look for at each school. As you can see in the picture, this Knox box is located on the left-hand side of the entryway when you're walking into the front doors of the school, and that is on the left-hand picture. You can see in the right-hand picture, this is our Knox box. This little door that's right here, that door lifts up, and underneath that door is a keyway where we can stick our Knox key in order to open this and gain access to the keys for the school. And this is true with every school that we have in our district, is the keys for the school are going to be located in this Knox box. So here we're looking at the front entryway of Bowler Elementary School. Again, you can see on the right-hand side of the entryway, there's that little black box. This top picture shows the Knox box. This one is, again, the same as Perkins. It just has that little red line above at the top that just shows that it's there. It doesn't mean anything. That little red line is just to help identify that Knox box. But it works just the same. You lift up the door or move the door out of the way, and then you gain access by putting your key in and opening that up, and then you can get the keys to access the school. So this is a rinse and repeat. This is McLean Middle School. Again, as you're walking up to the front entryway, on the right-hand side, you can see there's that little black box. The picture on the right actually shows the Knox box, and it looks exactly the same as the one does at Bowler Elementary with the red on top, and it operates the same as the other Knox boxes. Last but not least, this is Moapa Valley High School. Front entryway doors, there on the right-hand side. You can see that little black box. That picture on the right-hand side. You can see that, again, it's the same. They all look the same. That way we're not trying to find what they look like or where they are. All of them are located at the main entryway of each school. Now you can see that the Knox boxes are located at the entryway. This should also hold true for all major businesses that have one. The MVFD is working with our local businesses to get these installed to grant us access without having to damage their property. Over the next few slides, we'll look at each alarm panel for each school and where they're located. Once we've covered all of that, then we'll go into what your crew or company should do after you've determined where the panel is and what kind of alarm is being displayed. In the front office of Perkins, they have a keypad and a pull station. That pull station is the only one throughout the entire school. The keypad can be used as an auxiliary shutoff, but you will need a key to shut off certain types of alarms. The easiest place to shut off the alarms would be at the alarm panel, which is located on the next slide. So just to clarify for you guys, this one on the right-hand side, there's that key that's right there. You would have to have a key that we do not have to put that in there to override and be able to clear the alarms from that keypad. That's why it's just easier to go straight to the alarm panel. On this slide, from left to right, there's a map of the inside of the school, the entire alarm panel, and then just the keypad of the panel itself. As you can see on the map, or not, depending on how good your vision is, once you enter the building, the first hallway on your left, and then the first doorway on your left is where the alarm panel is located. Here is the door you will go into to find the alarm panel, which is directly down the hallway once you walk through the front doors. There's also a keypad once you walk through the entry doors on the right-hand side, just before you walk into the office. I did not get a picture of that, so that is not on this slide. I just want to reiterate before we go any farther through this presentation that you're looking at these panels after you've determined there's no problems or you're not sure where the problem is. If you pull up and there's a huge fire ripping out one side of the building, I don't need to go to the alarm panel. I can go to where the fire's at and start putting the fire out. But if you are not sure where the fire is or where the problem is, that's what these panels are for, because they're going to tell you where the alarm is going off so that you can use either a map that's provided or with the sectors that are displayed on the panel itself, where to go to find the problem. The picture on the left, this one is the keypad with the shelter in place button. So all 4 schools have that shelter in place button at various locations, but most all of them are located either near the keypad or the alarm panel. We don't need to use this button to reset the alarm panel. It's just there for them to use. The middle picture is the entrance to the library, which is just down the walkway from the front office, and it's on the left-hand side. Once you're in the library, you'll be able to find the sign on the right side of the library that's located just above the door to where the panel is located. So a word of caution with McLean. So this is the only school in our district that is not equipped with a suppression system of any kind. Due to the age of the building, they are not required to have sprinklers, or it would be too expensive to retrofit this campus with such a system. This is extremely important to know because if there are any alarms going off at this school, we need to treat it as a real thing, especially because there is nothing to keep the fire in check and limit fire spread. So we need to be extremely aggressive in our thought patterns and our strategies when it comes to McLean. So this picture is a map of McLean Middle School and how they have all of their sectors laid out. So again, here's our main entrance where we came in from. You can walk through the front office, and that's where this keypad's at. It sits right here on this wall. If you don't want to go through that area, you can send your crews. There's a walkway that comes. Let me change my color here really quick. There's a walkway that comes down over here on the side, and you can walk into the library right here. And then if you turn to the right, this is your FACP, which stands for your fire alarm control panel. So it's immediately when you walk in the library on the right-hand side, that's where the fire alarm control panel is. How these are all labeled is all of the sectors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you look at the alarm panel and it shows whatever sector, it should tell you the sector and possibly the room number. I'm not 100% certain, It depends on how they have their system set up. But I wanted to make sure just to draw for you guys where you can go in, where that keypad is located, and then where you can go find the actual fire alarm control panel on this campus. This is the alarm panel at the high school. When you walk through the front doors of the front office, you're going to see the desk that's right in front of you, and it's on the left-hand side. You can't miss this alarm panel. It's right there on the left-hand side before you turn to go to where the counselor's offices are, or you go down that hallway. Right there on that wall next to the picture of the faculty is this alarm panel. And it's set up the same way as Perkins and as MacLion, where you have this panel and it will display right there in that green screen on whatever the problem code is or whatever sector it's in. And then there's a map on the panel itself of the high school of where everything's laid out. The next slide actually has an enlarged picture of the map so you guys can see it a little bit better. This is the picture of the high school. The alarm panel that I was telling you guys at is right here in the front office. It's right on that wall, right when you first walk in on the left-hand side. You can see that little red mark on the map that I made. That's right where it's at. And then as you can see, it has it all sectioned off up here in the top. If you look up here on the top of the picture, it's got all the different sectors and sections and how they're going to come up on the green screen on the panel. So if you need that for reference, it's going to be on the alarm panel itself at the high school. Or you can just take this picture. You can ask me and I can send you this picture that I have of it. Now that we've gone through each school and where their panel is located, let's go over what types of alarms we'll be responding to. There are two main alarm types that we will go to when we are going to one of our 4 schools, and it's either general fire signals or water flow signals. General fire signals is an alarm that has to do with the panel itself in some way. You will see one of the 3 types of alarms on the panel, which are the alarm, the actual alarm will go off, the trouble, or supervisory. So each one has its own thing that it represents. If it's actually an alarm on the panel itself, then it will be there's an actual immediate threat or danger of fire somewhere in the building, or there was immediate threat of fire somewhere in the building, that there were fire conditions present currently or at some point in time, and it's going to show up red in color. Your trouble alarm is a problem with the system itself. Either it has a low battery, there was a power outage, there's bad wiring somewhere. It's going to be yellow. It'll flash yellow on the panel. And don't worry, I have pictures of just the panel to show you guys where all of that's at. The last one is supervisory. These are ones that it's not an emergent issue with the alarm panel, or there's no emergent issue. So there's either low water pressure, somebody closed a sprinkler valve if there's a sprinkler system installed. And again, those are going to show up yellow. So those are the 3 different types of general fire signals, or if you look on the MCT, dispatch will label these as a GFS. GFS stands for General Fire Signals. So water flow signals, or WFS, means that there's water flowing within the system somewhere. This can be caused by several different factors, including a sprinkler activation, a broken sprinkler, a broken pipe, or low air pressure in the system. Many systems will use a backup pump that uses air pressure to keep water in the line under pressure. If the system detects a drop in air pressure, it will engage the pump to increase the pressure to make sure that the system can flow enough water and to keep the system under pressure. If the pump becomes faulty, though, it may not be able to hold the pressure, which will allow the pressure in the system to drop, and that will trigger the water flow the same way as if there was a sprinkler activation. So you guys are going to get to pretty bad drawing here for me to explain this. But let's imagine we have a pump Here's our pump. And attached to this pump is this pipe. And this pipe attaches to the main system. Okay, and this main system feeds the sprinklers. So we have water in this, or if water's flowing, right, water will come into this is if there's a sprinkler activation. Say this comes down to this system here, and then there's a little sprinkler, and then it will flow water to the pump. The sprinkler activates, water comes out. The pump will then activate to increase your air pressure. That way it can maintain that flow and be a backup for that system. Okay, what will happen sometimes is if this becomes faulty, okay, what will happen then is that all of a sudden this is keeping this under pressure, right? This is a dry line, just so you guys are aware. This always stays as a dry line. So if we had this, there shouldn't be any water in this system anywhere. So this is keeping that air pressure under control. So that way there's not water coming in here. Well, if this starts to become faulty, then our air pressure is going to drop. And if our air pressure drops, then all of a sudden everything that was being held back here by the pump is now going to try to flow up and into the system. Well, obviously it doesn't have as much pressure as a sprinkler activation would. So it's going to go into the system, and then it's not going to be able to have enough pressure to really pressurize the whole system. And these systems are designed that if you have a little bit of water flow in them, there are drains that come out. Again, this is going to be really bad drawing, so I apologize. It comes out this way, and there's a wall right here. Let's put this as an outside wall, and this is our drain, and then our water is going to come out right here at the bottom of this drain to show that, okay, this isn't pressurizing the system, but there is water flow in the system somewhere, and the culprit will most likely be this pump's faulty. So again, if we have water flow, a lot of the times it's the pump that's the problem. And you'll see that by when you go look at that drain that's on that outside wall. It's not going to be this huge torrent of water. It's just going to be water that's just kind of coming out of that drain because the pump has failed to keep pressure in the system. I hope that explanation helps. If not, then you may have to find someone else that did it better on YouTube to explain it better to you, or talk to an alarm technician. So I promised you that I would show you the panel and what the panel looks like and how we can shut off alarms, because that's what we're going to start going over right now, is how we shut off alarms or silence alarms if needed. So what's going to happen is you can see that we have all these different lights that can come off right here, right? These are all our different lights. So depending on what kind of problem we have will depend on what light shows up. Again, if we have an alarm, like I mentioned earlier, that's this guy right here. That one's going to turn, that's a red light. That means we have a fire alarm. That means that we either have fire conditions or had fire conditions at some point in time. The other two that we're going to see most of the time is either the supervisory, which will be in yellow, or the system trouble, which will show up in yellow. Those lights, that little guy right there, will illuminate in yellow writing, or in yellow color, excuse me. So we're going to deal with those three 99% of the time. And what's going to happen with this panel is you're going to have information come up on this screen, and it's going to tell you what's going on, what the problem is, if there was water flow, if there was smoke, if there's whatever the problem may be, it's going to show up there. So what we do in that situation is we want to first acknowledge the call. Okay, acknowledge the problem that's on this screen. Okay, so we want to acknowledge first. Then once we acknowledge, we're going to send our crew to the problem. Okay, not everybody goes. Someone has to stay at the panel. So everyone, you need to have 2 people with the radio at least. Send somebody to go find the problem, preferably 2 people if you have them. If not, there's only 2 of you that responded. 1 goes to the problem, 1 stays at the panel. You go, find out if there's a problem. If there's no problem, you see no fire, whatever you find, you radio back to your partner, let them know what you found, and then you can try to reset the system. Okay, if you can acknowledge and then you can try to reset the system. Somewhere during that point of time, if you want, after you acknowledge the alarm, get rid of all these lines here. After you hit this button, you can still silence that. So you're not sitting there walking around as the alarms are wailing and screaming at you for no reason, right? So acknowledge the alarm, and we're going to, again, acknowledge number 1. Number 2, we can silence it. Number 3, we're going to send somebody to go figure out where that problem is. Once they've figured that out, that there is no problem, then we can try to reset the system. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 is send help. We're going to put send help. Okay, send help. And number 4 is try to reset the system. And that's how we deal with general fire signals: is acknowledge, silence, send help, and then try to reset the system if possible. We're going to address what to do if this doesn't silence, if it doesn't let you reset. So this is it doesn't like this. It says, no, you can't reset it. Then we're going to talk about what to do to hopefully keep it this, or who we need to contact in order to make that happen. So let's go on to the next slide and we'll talk about what to do for other fire alarms and shutting those off. Before we go on to that, though, I wanted to make sure to show you guys, this is Bowler's alarm panel. They're the only one that has a panel like this. Everybody else has the same things on it, right? The one that I showed you from the previous slide is what the other 2 schools, MacLine and MBHS, both have the same one as Perkins. So the one that I showed you from earlier was Perkins Elementary. So this is Grant Bowler's alarm panel. You can see it set up the same way as our other panels, just a little bit different. Right, you got your green box right here that tells you that all systems are normal right now, but if you have issues, then that's where that's going to be. Again, it even tells you, Grant Bowler's even taken it upon it to do this for us, right? 1, 2, 3. The only thing that they don't have that we want to do is we want to send help. Right? That's the one thing that they don't do that we do, is send help to whatever it is. You can see that this is that light. So there's a yellow light that they silence some signal. I don't know what it is. It says all systems are normal. So I don't know why it shows that. But you can see, again, fire alarm is right there. And then you have your trouble and you have your other trouble. So this is your security or your supervisory alarm, and then your trouble alarm. And we don't have to worry about any of this stuff that's over here. You can see it's the same thing. You have your acknowledge, your silence, your system reset. It's all over there, but we don't need to worry about that kind of stuff because they know that we're firefighters, and so they put it all right here for us. So again, this is Bowler's panel. Same setup, just looks a little bit different. So this is how we're going to shut off water flow signals. It's a little bit different Then our general fire signals, there's a couple more steps involved. We're most likely going to have to go back to the fire alarm panel because the fire alarm panel is linked with your fire riser. And so you'll still have to acknowledge, silence, and system reset after you've taken care of the water flow signal. So again, we always find the fire alarm panel first to make sure whatever alarm is going off, we can clear that. If it's a water flow signal problem or a water flow problem, then what we need to do is we need to go through and we have to locate the riser room. So most of the riser rooms are labeled on the outside of the door with a sign that says fire riser room. So the sign indicates that there is a sprinkler system located inside of that room. So once you enter the room, you may see several pipes, valves, gauges for different sprinkler systems within the system itself. So you can attempt to isolate the line that's flowing water by looking at one of the gauges. They may show a decreased water or air pressure, or it may show an increased water air pressure. It depends on the system. You can try to feel one of the lines to see if you can feel water flowing through it, though I've never had success with doing that. It was something I was taught. Or you can just shut off the main valve that feeds the whole system. If you shut off the main valve, number one, it's a last resort, because if we do it, it does just that. It shuts off the entire system. I didn't go into each riser room in each school, so I can't speak on how they're actually laid out and how many different sprinkler systems they have. So you're going to need your best judgment and pre-plan your own areas on whether or not you need to shut off the main. If there's only one sprinkler line, it's going to be easy to determine what line needs to be shut off, right? But that's basically the same as shutting off the whole system, because now there's going to be no suppression to this whole building. Many of the water flow signal calls that I've been on, we've just been forced to shut it off at the main, even though it's last resort. It's just been the only way we've been certain that the affected line has actually been shut off. So once you decided to shut off the line, or you shut off the main, you'll have to find the main drain or the drain for that line and empty the system to stop the actual water flow. After the system is drained, you'll want to have Clark County School Police notified by contacting dispatch to tell them that they're going to need to be on fire watch until the system is fixed. We just took out the main source of suppression and prevention for that building. You can't leave it undefended because they're depending on that system. That's what they've gotten used to. That's how their whole operation works. So we need to make sure that if we shut down the system, we have to notify someone that we've shut off the system and that we need to have someone there on fire watch until the system gets fixed. So for our schools, that's going to fall to us notifying dispatch to contact CCSP, who's the Clark County School Police, to show up and be on fire watch until the system is fixed. Again, though shutting off the main is the last resort, we as the fire department are not alarm technicians, and we have not been trained how to isolate lines effectively. So shutting off the main is the most certain way to fix the water flow problem until an alarm technician can come repair the system. Make sure after you shut off the system, you need to drain the system completely so that there's no water flowing anywhere. Have someone go back to the alarm panel or be at the alarm panel, either one. Double check that you can reset the system or at least silence the system until someone can repair it. Most administrators will want to be notified when there's some type of alarms. There's a couple different ways in which we can do this. So if CCSP is responding, they are our main point of contact if there's an alarm that's found to be non-emergent. Obviously, if we have fire conditions, we don't need to worry about notifying people because the building's on fire. We're going to put out the fire, we're going to do our job, and then at that point, we can notify dispatch or CCP or whoever else we need to if it hasn't been taken care of. But the priority is life safety and instant stabilization, property conservation. Personnel notification isn't in that system, right? So let's take care of our LIP priorities, and then we can take care of notifying people if we need to, if there's a fire. Again, if it's non-emergent, then CCSP is going to be our main point of contact. So they can notify the appropriate personnel that are associated with that school, and I'm talking about CCSP. That way we don't have to have individual numbers for individual administrators. And when I was speaking to a lot of the staff at each school, the administrator is automatically notified when an alarm goes off. So we won't have to really worry about doing that in either case. So if CCSP is not responding and you have not been able to silence the alarm, first, you have to notify dispatch that you found no issue if there was none, and then you were unable to silence the alarm. And then secondly, you need to tell dispatch to notify CCSP of the problem as well. That way we've done our due diligence and made sure that the appropriate people are notified. So if the call, you were able to silence the alarm, you need to just, again, update dispatch that you're able to silence the alarm and what if any problems that you found. So an example would be is if you responded and it was a supervisory alarm that you were able to silence and clear, just tell dispatch that you were able to clear the alarm and there was no problem. This goes for any alarm that we may have. It's a trouble alarm or supervisory alarm, whatever alarm we run into, we need to do our best to try to silence it because we have access to the alarm panel. And if we can't silence it, then we need to notify dispatch that we were unable to silence the alarm. They're going to need an alarm technician to respond, and that CCSP will need to be notified so they can notify the appropriate personnel, whatever else their procedures are for the school district. Our main job is to make sure that there are no fire conditions, that there is no threat of fire or fire spread, and then once we have determined that, then we can worry about silencing an alarm. And lastly, we can worry about who needs to be notified. If you can't shut off the alarm, it is what it is. That's not our main priority. We are going to try out of courtesy to silence and shut off the alarm and reset the system. But again, that is not our main priority for being on that call. So after you've made sure there were no problems or fire conditions in the building, whether you shut off the alarm or not, your crew is good to return to service. Make sure before you leave that you secure the building and then return the keys to the Knox box. Once you have secured the Knox box, have your crew gather any equipment they may have taken in with them. It may also help to do another walk around of your unit or of the scene that you're on to make sure that you have any of your equipment. Fire alarms calls are infrequent out here, but they are something that we need to be aware of how to handle them. Going back to the very beginning of this presentation, you need to have the mindset that there's actually a fire going on when the fire alarm goes off. If you walk in expecting nothing and you get something, your wheels are going to be spinning for the first couple minutes until you can catch up, and then you're going to be good to go, but you're never going to feel like you catch up. I can tell you guys from experience on several different alarms calls that I've been on that we have walked in expecting nothing, and next thing you know, you're scrambling to put gear on because, it was just another alarms call. The knowledge of how to shut off an alarm and what to do in case there is an alarm is something that we have to refine as a district because it's our schools and our businesses that are depending on that knowledge in order to circumvent any problems that may arise. So this lesson was much shorter than previous lessons that we've done. However, it does not mean it's much or any less important than any previous lesson. Have an aggressive mindset, expect fire conditions, walk in with your crew with that mindset. Even if you don't see fire conditions that are obvious, we still need to suspect there's fire until proven otherwise. We are in the business of putting out fires, literally and figuratively. So we need to go in expecting that there's fire. Once you have determined that there is no fire, we can go to the alarm panel, see what kind of alarm is going off, where it's at in the building, send help down to that room to confirm there is no problem. Once we've confirmed that, we can reset the system. And again, that's for general fire signals. For water flow signals, we have to make sure that there is water flowing, number one, where the water is flowing from. If it's from a broken sprinkler, a broken pipe, maybe we have a faulty pump. We need to confirm that first. Once we've done that, we can either shut off the line if we can identify and isolate the line, or we have to shut off the main to the whole property. Drain the system so the water stops flowing. Notify dispatch. If CCSP is not on scene with us, by the way, if they're on scene, just talk to the officer on scene and then tell dispatch you talked to the officer that was there with you. If they are not on scene, then you need to notify dispatch that CCSP needs to respond to the scene. Now, this is where the problem comes in, is if they are not on scene and you are ready to leave and you have shut off the system, you cannot leave until there's someone there to do fire watch. It's not the best situation to be in, but we cannot leave that property undefended because we took away their system. So we need to make sure that we're notifying the school police to be there, to be on fire watch until the alarm company can come and repair either the system or repair the sprinkler system, either the fire system, fire alarm system, or the sprinkler system, either one. Once you've done all that, you're good to go. Fire alarms are quick, easy, and painless 99% of the time. It's that 1% of the time that we always need to be in the mindset to be ready to do. So that's everything for fire alarms. Officers, if you have any questions on what to do or what the code is for that lockbox, please reach out to me personally. If any of you have any questions on fire alarms, you can either go to your company officer or you can come to me and I will give you as much information as you want. Until then, take care.